Welcome to Coffee Talk Tuesday. My name is Shalise Stevens, and I'm here with Trip Mitchell. And our guest today is Phil Nelson, another one of my super awesome business instructors from Salt Lake Community College.
Are you on the take? Every guest we have, it seems, there's a nexus to the community college. Are you getting paid off?
No, I'm not. I'm not even.
How much do you pay for tuition?
Well, that's not a fair question because I'm actually.
She doesn't pay anything in tuition. Oh my God.
I personally don't pay for it.
Oh my God. You know, Phil.
Okay, let me tell you about this because this is actually really cool.
Phil, can we do an investigation?
No. I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, why?
Because I was laid off in November of 2018. And because I was laid off and our jobs were outsourced, Utah State actually has a super cool program where they will send you back to school, and it's called their trade program. So they pay your tuition for 2 years so you can get a better degree and get into the working.
I will look up on to the Hill and compliment them. That is great public policy.
It really is. It really, and many of us actually have been able to take advantage of this program and really better. I'm super excited. I'm grateful that it all happened because without it, I wouldn't have been, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I have 2 more semesters left. Well, after this one more. So
Phil, as an attorney, but you've worked for government. We were just talking before the show, you were a prosecutor up in Washington. This program makes a lot of sense because with the economy changing, we're displacing a lot of workers and they might not have the skills to keep up. And even, you know, if someone in their 50s gets a chance to go back to community college and learn some more skills that are easy to find and easy to use, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and it's not just through the community college either. It's also wherever, like they have several of the colleges all over University of Utah. Some people are able to go back and finish up their master's degree program. Like there's been a lot of really super cool things that have.
Could I go to law school on this program?
I don't know. Shalise is the expert on it, but you're right. You know, we have one of the benefits one of the things I love about teaching in a community college is most of our students are working students. They're not there on their family's trust fund. You know, they're working their way through college, the same that I did. And so you're exactly right. A lot of students that are returning now are facing a skills gap where the job market is much different than it was when they entered their careers. And now their careers have been displaced and it's a completely different environment. And so that's one of the things that we really, at SLIC, one of the things we really try to do is address that skills gap and the constantly changing, you know, business marketplace. And Shalise is an example of that. She's done an excellent job applying what she learns in class and really putting it into real world, you know, use.
We had one of your deans on last week, Dean Barbie, and but it was interesting in talking to her and learning about some of the programs that the community college has. And what I love about it, this is kind of a crazy story, but when the Food Network started going strong about 10 years ago, I was down in Vegas and we had a place called the Culinary Institute of Las Vegas. And a lot of wives of successful people would go there, and a 2-year degree was $160,000. You could go to Clark County Community College, pick up the same skills for, I think, $3,200 and a better program worldwide. And then if you wanted to transfer to UNLV, and all of a sudden at 4 years at a fraction of the price, you would have an undergraduate degree and literally the advantage of going to one of the best colleges for hotel administration in the world. And so the community colleges are so smart, and unfortunately the band we have in Washington right now doesn't recognize that to a large degree. They would much rather have private schools take that over, but I just get too political, Phil, sorry.
No,
yes,
you're right with what you addressed though. There's, you know, a lot of these colleges, especially during a recession, you know, we'll see how our economy comes out of this right now. This is an interesting time, but especially during a down economy, you have students that are looking for the most cost efficient education they can get. And, you know, one of the things, again, just to reiterate the community college benefit is these students know what classes they're taking and why they're taking them because they're paying for them. And they feel that cost, and they're working, you know, 40, 60 hours a week. And so they're not just taking whatever class seems the most fun. they're taking classes that they can apply. And that's why I love it. My students are really engaged in the discussions. They're asking real world questions. You know, if I were going to implement this today, how would I do it? And I love that. It's not that way at all institutions. So I love it.
Well, tell me an embarrassing story about Shalise.
I don't think he has any.
I don't have any.
If you don't, make them up. This is podcasting. We're not held to a high standard.
No, Shalise is awesome. She's been she's always engaged in class. So no, I don't have anything bad. I do have bad stories about other students, but not about Shalise.
Well, just tell those stories and just use Shalise does. And it'll be fine. I was pitching Shalise to go work for you because I understand that you are, aside from being an attorney, do a great job putting courses together, training modules. Is that correct?
Well, I think we should get started with Phil telling us his story and how he got involved with this, though.
Oh my God, you like to start A and then go.
I know. Well, I mean, unless you read my book, and then it's not like that. But
okay. So, go ahead, Phil. Where'd you start out and how'd you get here?
I'll give you the 5 minutes. That's about as compressed as I can get it. So,
that's good. Time for break.
So cut me off when you need to cut me off. But 2006, I was 23 years old, and I was got married my wife. She was my high school sweetheart. And about 2 weeks before we got married, we found out she had cancer. We didn't know at the time whether it was stage 2 or stage 3 melanoma. She's fine now, so happy ending to the story. But the point is, I was working as a teller at Wells Fargo Bank. At Zions Bank is where I was at the time. And I was working as a teller, and I quit that job because I'd been offered an in-store branch manager job. Now, that was a good job for a college student. I think I was going to make $50,000 or $60,000 a year. So I'd quit my job. My wife was starting treatment at Huntsman Cancer Institute, and then we got married and went on our honeymoon, right? So then while we're on our honeymoon, we get a call and find out that when she gets home, she's got to go in and have another surgery to take out her lymph nodes to see if the cancer had spread and how far it had spread. So obviously she's pretty bummed out by that. I'm pretty bummed out by that. And so we were walking down the beach in Mexico on our honeymoon, and there was this sign that said you could swim with the dolphins. And I think it was $150 a person to swim with the dolphins. And she said, I've always dreamed of swimming with the dolphins. And I said, well, okay, and you're going to swim with the dolphins. And we went up there, and I remember when I paid, I had something like $120 in my account. So I didn't have enough money. I knew I didn't have enough money in my account. And I'm just praying, just please go through, right? And so I swipe it, and it goes through, and she swims with the dolphins, and that's great. Well, we come home the next day, and I've got a negative bank balance, and I show up for the first day of work at this new job that I was supposed to start. And I walk in, and they tell me, oh, you didn't get our messages. We actually gave the position to somebody else. And so while I was on my honeymoon, they pulled the position out from under me and given it to somebody else. And so here I am, I'm unemployed. This is before Obamacare, so we're now got a pre-existing medical condition. We're not eligible for insurance. This is during the recession, right? Now the recession started, and I can't find a good job. I've got a house, I've got cars, both of us are full-time college students. And so I thought, okay, I really need to figure out a way to make some money quick. And so I started brainstorming. I stayed up all night, and I wrote on a whiteboard about 100 ideas. And 97 of them were stupid. 3 of them were worth thinking about. And the idea that really stuck out to me was I had taken a training course from an instructor, and it was actually a concealed firearm permit training course. So if you're familiar with that whole system, basically you take a 4-hour training course, you mail in, you have a background check, but you have to pay somebody to give you that course. And the guy that I had paid was just so bad at it. I mean, just terrible. I sat there during the whole class and thought, this is painful. I shouldn't be paying this guy money. Well,
hey, I'm sorry I was so boring when I was teaching that class, but I was going through a rough time.
I thought I recognized you. That's right.
Yeah.
But so I sat down and I thought, okay, I can do that. I can do a better job than this guy. So I went and got certified. And then I started brainstorming, okay, what other instructor certification, what other classes could I teach so that I could teach on the weekends and make some extra money? And I just went and started gathering all these credentials. And the first class I ever taught was at my living room table, my kitchen table, I should say. It was one of my best friends, my mom, and then a Weber State college professors who came to the class. And my mom paid twice, so it was as if I'd taught 4 people. And you know, at the end of the class,
good mom.
Yeah,
She now carries an M16 around.
Right?
you don't want to mess with my mom. But she, you know, at the end of that class, I had $200. So I took that $200 and I went on KSL Classifieds and I bought a used projector because I wanted to be able to project a PowerPoint. And I bought this huge, I mean, just the size of a table almost projector. The thing weighed 15 pounds, really old. Bought an old projector and I started teaching these classes. Now I'll fast forward. Over the next 7 years, I continued to run that business all the way through my undergrad, all the way through law school. And by the time I graduated from law school, we were operating in, you know, about 30 states and about 250 locations a month. We were certifying 25 to 30,000 students a year to obtain their different certifications. And we were the largest company of our kind in the nation. I got profiled by Forbes magazine and things were going really, really well. And so then I was approached by a group of investors who wanted to purchase the company. And so I sold the company to them in 2014. And then I took about 8 months and I didn't do anything. Didn't know what I was going to do. I've got a law practice here in North Ogden, but you know, making a living as a lawyer is
no fun.
It's not.
No lawyer likes it.
It really, and I mean, that is the reality. And there are a few
lawyers hate. There's one thing lawyers hate, and that's people. Aside from that,
and the work they do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 2 things. And the hours.
I mean, it really is the landscape for an attorney my age today, trying to make a living in a solo practice or even in a firm. You know, it's 60 to 80 hours a week. You're taking on more work than you should ethically because you're trying to pay the bills. And it's rough. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do so I've got my law practice, but I limited it. And then I started talking with Salt Lake Community College, and they said they were looking for somebody that wanted to teach entrepreneurship and business law. So that sounded right up my alley. And so I've been doing that since 2015. I love it. Now the company that I sold actually they hired me back on about 2 weeks later. They called me and said, hey, this is a little more complicated than we thought running this business. And so I still consult for them on a regular basis. And I've got a couple other startups that I'm working with, but I just like to stay busy. So I've never figured out how to have just one job. You know, it's never been.
So a couple notes on what you were saying. One, when you were down and spent $150 to have your wife swim with the dolphins.
Yeah.
If you'd gone out in the water, it turns out the dolphins have to pay to swim with her. So those guys are double dipping. They're making extra money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little known fact.
I remember she turned to me and said, don't you want to swim with them? And I said, no. You know, I wasn't saying there's no way this charge is going through twice, right? It's
So, and the other thing you mentioned, your wife is doing great now. We are so lucky to have the Huntsman Cancer Institute here in Utah. We had a guest. Shalise has gotten some great guests, Phil. I mean, really good. And one young lady was a nurse at Children's Hospital down in Riverton, I believe. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that. So we have 2 of the most amazing hospitals for young people and cancer right here in the state of Utah. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
We are. I can't tell you. I mean, Huntsman, if you've never been through that with a loved one, that is just going there day in and day out, such an emotionally taxing thing, not just to see what's happening with your loved one, but there's 100, 200, 300 people there at any given time that are in worse situations. A lot of them younger, you know, kids. Oh, it's just, so my hat's off to people that work in that industry and are able to handle the emotion of that career. That's not easy.
And finally, we got to go to break, but I want you to think of what course you're going to have your old company hire Shalise to teach.
Why do you keep trying to give me jobs? I have plenty.
I want you to be a Jamaican. I want you to have 14 jobs. She's working for me on a project as well, but I want to keep her busy.
Projects.
Two shows, so it's not big. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to actually let Phil and Shalise talk.
Oh, well, thank you.
Figure it's the least we can do. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to Coffee Talk Tuesday. Again, I'm Shalise, and there's Tripp right over there. And we have our guest today, Phil Nelson. Thanks, Phil, for being on. And we're going to continue with your story, because I absolutely love the people that they hire at Salt Lake Community College to come and do it. I mean, you obviously don't have to do your teaching job at Salt Lake Community College, but you do it because you love it, and it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, I really do love it. And people, my wife has asked me, what's your plans? I plan on teaching there forever. I really do. That's one of the benefits of entrepreneurship, is you can really, if it works out, when it works out, you can choose what you want to do. And I love teaching. I will do that. I anticipate doing that forever. So, when I talk to my students, you mentioned the other professors at Slick. When I went through my undergrad, one of my biggest frustrations was very few of my professors had ever worked in the fields that they taught. And it was frustrating for me, because I'd want to ask questions, and it was, they graduated and gone straight into academia. They just started working as professors. And that was, I understand that. I understand that that happens, but it was frustrating for me. Where Slick, one of the great things about Salt Lake Community College is most of the professors have almost everybody. I can't think of anybody in our department that doesn't have real world experience operating in their industries. Yeah. And they encourage us to do this. A lot of other institutions would tell you you're not allowed to work outside of the institution, where Salt Lake Community College says the opposite. We are actively encouraged. Part of my tenure review is that I have to be actively engaging in the fields of my discipline that I teach. And I love that.
Well, and it makes a difference for us too, because a lot of the things that I'm working on with my nonprofit and with everything else that I'm doing, I get to go to you guys and ask for help, and you are more than willing to help. And several of my projects have even been put into the classrooms to help just work on and have that real life experience, which is it's awesome. And it does propel you forward way quicker than just learning about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, and it's one of the things that's interesting, as we look towards changing kind of job markets and what the future is going to look like in the next decade, in the next 15, 20 years, a lot of the traditional jobs that people are looking at, entrepreneurship rates increase dramatically during times of recession, during times of, upwards of 40%. You'll see entrepreneurship rates increase during a recession. And so, it's the traditional jobs that people thought of as good jobs. A lawyer, the average lawyer in the state of Utah that graduates today and starts a legal career is making around $45,000 to $55,000 a year. I mean, that's money that you can very easily make elsewhere without going through law school. Now, obviously, there's an ability to climb up and increase that income as an attorney. But still, that's not what most people think of when they think of a traditional, good job. And a lot of these industries, the medical industry, the dental industry, we might see displaced by technology much quicker than other fields. And so I think it's important as a professor or anybody that's pursuing their education to look at what the changing landscape really looks like. What does the job market, what is a good job 15 years from now?
Right.
Well, and the cool thing about the community college, and so to backtrack for a second, we've got a couple national shows we're working with. Yeah. And Shalise has come on board to kind of help us increase the reach of the shows and work with social marketing. And she was able to explain this degree this certification she's going to get from Facebook.
Yeah.
And that is impressive as all get out, because any business owner knows that they need to keep an eye on the digital spend. It's not just doing commercials in the 6 o'clock news anymore.
Yeah.
But a lot of us who might be a little older don't know how to do it. And it's changing on an hourly basis.
Right.
So having a program like Shalise is getting at the community college is great. And the other thing, I love the community college because it doesn't have mission creep. And by that, it's not trying to become a 4-year. We talked about it last week. The college down in Utah County, that was a great community college, but it wanted to be a 4-year school. Now it's the biggest school in the state, and it's lost sight of its mission.
Yeah.
What's it doing to help people?
Yep, that's hard, and you're exactly right. And we can't, right? We not only do we not want to, but we can't delve into that. By our charter, we're charged with being this 2-year institution, not offering, doctorate degrees and PhD programs. And so we can really focus on what matters to our students. And Most of them are just starting their education. So how do they choose the career field they're going to go into? That's a big part of the classes I teach, is just talking about how do you choose. Most people, myself included, go through their education without thinking about what career they actually want to work in. I mean, I got a political science degree because I asked my counselor at the time, my academic counselor, what's the easiest degree? Which degree has the least math involved in it? And then I thought, I've got a political science degree, so I guess people that have those go to law school, so I guess I should go to law school. I mean, nobody ever sat me down and said, hey, do you want to be a lawyer? And thankfully, I had this entrepreneurial vein in me that pushed me that direction, because, man, if not for that, I'd be in a different situation. So I hope to at least get my students thinking that direction.
Well, you've had an interesting entrepreneurial career in that your stuff works. The vast majority of people who start businesses, it is so tough and it is so hard. How do you prepare someone for just the amount of negative garbage that you get when you run a business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're right, 65% of businesses won't make it 10 years, right? So you're more likely to fail than you are to succeed, at least in a long term. And so it is hard. One of the things I tell students is to mitigate risk. So, even
not only that, you try to minimize it.
Yeah, exactly. What I was doing what I did, of course, I started my business, but I shoestringed it. I cash flowed everything. I never took out any debt. My company never had a penny of debt, and I refused to do a penny of debt. Now, we could have scaled faster if we'd have taken out debt. One of the stories I tell is I've got a picture in my office of my first office, and it was about 3 blocks from where I'm sitting right now. And it was about an 8-foot by 7-foot room. It had enough space for me to put a desk in and a chair, but there wasn't enough space on the other side of the desk for other chairs, so nobody could come sit in my office because you couldn't open the door. And
that's a good strategy.
Yeah. And I remember I sent my wife a text that night after moving into the office, and I said, we made it. I made it. Now, I tell people that story. The rent was $200 a month for that office. We were doing well over $1 million in revenue a year by the time I did that. Well over. And so my point is, I was scared to death of overextending. I knew the number one reason businesses fail is undercapitalization. They don't have enough money. When things get rough, when a pandemic hits and you have to shut down for 3 months, and all of a sudden you realize, turns out we haven't been doing inventory because we use what's called just-in-time inventory. We order stuff every Friday and get it on Monday. So we've never stored any inventory. And oops, we don't have any money in cash reserves. Now what do? I was scared of that scenario. So that's one thing I tell people, to always shoestring their businesses and mitigate risk. I worked 2 other jobs while I was running my business. And so there was never going to be a situation where I was all in, all my eggs in one basket. Now, there's other entrepreneurs who will tell you to do that, right? They'll tell you if you're not all in, then you're not in at all. So I'm not saying
that's the burn the lifeboat on the beach and commit.
Exactly. And you will hear that. And hey, a lot of those guys and gals are a whole lot more successful than I am. So take what advice you want to take. But for me and my personality, it was minimizing risk and growing incrementally. That's what worked for us. Because you can
as a serial business entrepreneur myself, the rewards are amazing. But boy, every night you count on it. You got to look at me. I'm actually 27. This is what happens when you own businesses.
I believe it. And I tell my students, just this week, I did a lecture on how to start a business through Salt Lake Community College. It's open to the community, by the way. As a kind of a shout out to it, I'm doing 2 more of them. There's one on June 28th. It's a Wednesday, and another one on July 9th. I think those dates are right. It's 2 Wednesdays. Anyways.
We'll put it up on our website.
That'd be great. They're free and open to the public. But one of the things I talked about is I said, look, you think you're going to start a business because you want more money or you want more freedom. And that's a nice thought. The reality is there's months where you will make more money, and then there's months where you'll work all month long really, really hard, and you'll lose money at the end of the month. You've lost money, right? And so there's no floor on the amount of money that you can lose. There's also no ceiling on how much you can make. But 3 or 4 times a week, I'll go home at 5 o'clock. I'll eat dinner with the family. I got 3 young kids. We'll watch a show. We'll read a book. I'll put them to bed. I'll talk to my wife, and then I will come back to the office at 9 o'clock till 1 or 1:30 in the morning. And that's a reality. That's a reality of being an entrepreneur. So it's not everybody's personality, and it doesn't have to be everybody's personality, but if it is your personality, then there is a lot of fulfillment that can come from it.
Phil, I remember being in class last semester.
It's Dr. Phil. He's a professor. Go ahead.
I'm not a doctor, though. You can't call lawyers doctors.
Not a doctor.
No, you have a Juris
Doctorate. It's a doctorate degree, but we're like the doctors nobody likes, so we can't be called.
I know, but you can call him doctor.
I can, but anyway.
I refer to my wife as doctor.
Oh, there you go.
All right, Dr. Phil.
No,
that's what I was going for.
So one of the things you said last semester was that a lot of people call themselves entrepreneurs, but they're actually not. And I was so happy, and I just have to tell you, it was the best compliment ever when I posted my article that Salt Lake Community College did on me with the DECA and everything like that. And in the comments, you said you're a great entrepreneur. And I was like, I did it! That, to me, is success.
You know what? Being an entrepreneur means you get phone calls, like I did on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, that makes your whole life upside down and everything's hitting the fan. So you could tell it's a human condition, Phil, that we always want what we don't have. So when I was working for a corporate sales job, I had the car, the expense account, but I wanted that freedom to be an entrepreneur. When you're an entrepreneur, you would love to be able to turn your phone off at 5 o'clock on a Friday and not worry about it till 8 o'clock on Monday. And that can never happen. What's the worst phone call you've ever gotten business-wise?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, so at any given time, the company that I founded we teach about 500 classes a month, right? So these are 500 different locations with different students enrolling. And so we would have, for example, an instructor that would get in a car accident on the way to Colorado. And this instructor would have 7 classes scheduled in the next 2 days that he was supposed to kind of a traveling. And so those types of calls, right? Now we've got to reschedule these 7 classes and we've got a bunch of angry students. So, I've had a lot of those. I don't know. That's a good question. What's the worst one? But you're right. You're personally invested. You read, it's a Friday night and you make the mistake of checking your email and you get some customer complaint. And this isn't just a customer complaint for a company you work for. This is somebody talking about your child, and it's very personal to you. And so then all of a sudden you're in this mind space of, I can't believe they'd say that. And my wife's looking at me like, we were watching a movie and now you got to respond to this person and you got to fix the problem. But you're exactly right. I mean, it's the idea that you can just kind of bifurcate or separate yourself from the business on a Friday and then look at it again on Monday. I cannot imagine what my life would be like if I did that.
And Vita, God bless her, but has been a cop or a federal prosecutor her whole career. She doesn't know actually, when she graduated from law school, she hung out her shingles, so she knows a little bit, but she's forgotten.
Yeah.
Because she gets upset at me when I look at my phone.
Yeah.
And it's no fun, but this half hour has flown.
Wow. It really has.
We would love to have you back. And how, so we'll put up on your
the website
when this entrepreneurship because that's a valuable lesson for people. And in Utah, we have so much. We met Shalise through a show that we call Working for Charities, and we got to meet individuals who have made a difference in the nonprofit world by coming out and having a passion and following it. And those same people can do it with entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to be back on. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Phil, thanks for being on. And thanks for all your insight. And we could talk to Phil for hours. That's why I have to keep enrolling in classes, because I just want to talk to them.
Time.
All right.
Well, you've wasted another half hour of your time watching Coffee Talk Tuesday.
You need to stop saying that.
Okay.
Is that your tagline? That's a terrible tagline.
Did you?
Yeah.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks, Phil, for being on, and thanks, Trip, for just being you.
Okay. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.